Yesterday, during the daily press briefing, Victoria's Chief Health Officer made an unbelievable revelation, but not one journalist in the room followed up with the necessary line of questioning. Before we get to that, just have a listen to what he said.
For deaths from coronavirus, anyone who's a confirmed case who dies is classified amongst coronavirus deaths. So it doesn't have to be definitively from coronavirus. And in some instances, in aged care, there would have been some residents who were already receiving palliative care who became infected with coronavirus. So definitive about whether they've died with or from coronavirus. I think it's fair to say that coronavirus is a very serious infection in anyone in aged care, but for classification purposes and reporting purposes, that's the definition.
I'm not only stunned by what Brett Sutton just said, but I'm also shocked that not one journalist there tried to ask any questions, pushing for more details. We're in a hard lockdown at the moment here in Victoria, with a curfew, stripped of some of our most fundamental human rights. We're even shut down our entire economy for this killer virus. But how many people is it really killing? What is the breakdown? What percentage of these coronavirus deaths were people already in palliative care? This is the most crucial piece of information. If we're doing all of this to save mostly people who only had months to live anyways, it calls into question the entire strategy. But journalists sitting there either don't care or are too stupid to get to the truth. So it's up to each and every one of you at home to share this far and wide, demanding answers from our government.
We're going to a different place, which is a new normal.
A new normal.
A new normal.
A new normal. A new normal.
New normal.
Embrace the new normal.
The new normal.
The new normal?
The new normal. The new normal.
This new normal is going to look very, very different.
Not normal, but...
These lockdowns on every community. That should be the focus. This happened just at the right time that they wanted it, to get exactly the reaction that they wanted. So maybe there's more to know about this, and it's not just only what you see.
For years, the federal government has denied any link between autism and vaccines. But a short time ago, we saw the release of a bombshell report. The feds have been quietly compensating children injured by vaccines. These are children who have autism. All of this despite the public denials. Joining us now is one of the authors of the new report, Mary Holland. She's a research scholar and director of the Graduate Legal Skills Program at New York University.
Chris, good morning to you. There are calls for a coronavirus vaccine to be made as mandatory as possible. Exactly how many people does the government want immunised?
Carl, good morning. The Prime Minister wants 95% of Australians vaccinated by early next year if the vaccine is proved successful. He initially said that he wants to make it as mandatory as possible, but did later backtrack, saying that any vaccine wouldn't be compulsory because he doesn't have the power to make Australians take it. However, there would be measures that would be introduced to encourage people to have the jab. The Prime Minister says the only reason someone shouldn't get vaccinated is if they have a medical exemption. The Deputy Chief Medical Officer said some of those encouragement measures could include an immunity passport. So that would mean you would have to have that immunity passport to do things like travel within Australia, catch public transport and even dine out. So similar to the government's no jab, no play policy. The Federal Health Minister says that they would even consider not allowing return travellers back into Australia without the jab.
The shortest period of time possible, so not open-ended, and we need a commitment that the Parliament will return to functioning. Daniel Andrews hasn't sat in the Parliament since June. He's been running the government by basically executive decision-making, and that's bad for democracy, it's bad for transparency, and it's bad for accountability. And we'll never know, Peter, whether that form of government we currently have helps contribute to some of these areas that have had such enormous consequences in economic loss and life loss.
Well, just on that, we'll know if there was a serious inquiry. We know that the current inquiry, some people call it a judicial inquiry, it's not. It's just an inquiry led by a former judge. It's after.
I heard the news today about the PM wanting to introduce a mandatory vaccination for COVID-19 for all Australians, or at least he wants 95% of Australians. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not happy about this. I'm quite angry about it because you have no right to say, I have to have this vaccination. Because I tell you what, I won't be having it. I don't have the flu vaccination, that's my choice. Even though I know 1,200 Australians died last year because of the flu, yet you never shut down the country. I'm just telling you out there, and the PM, I will not have it, and you will not force me to have it. It will be my choice, what I do.
Greetings, citizens of the world. This is a message for Bill Gates, from Anonymous. In the midst of a historical pandemic, much of the world is looking to you for solutions, and it seems that this is no mistake, because you have positioned yourself as the Nostradamus of disease. You have done an incredible job at rebuilding your image, from a ruthless and cutthroat corporate CEO to a benevolent philanthropist and savior of the world. This is nothing new, this is a classic move from the robber baron's playbook. At one time, the notorious industrialist John D. Rockefeller was one of the most hated people in the country, due to his poor treatment of workers, his monopolization of key industries, and his influence in politics. After a massacre of striking miners in 1914, which came to be known as the Ludlow Massacre, Rockefeller's reputation was at its worst, so he decided to hire a team of propagandists to restore his public image. Leading that team was public relations pioneer Ivy Lee. Lee was an early influence of Edward Bernays, who would later write the infamous book Propaganda, a textbook of mind control for tyrants and aristocrats. Bernays is the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and often called the father of propaganda, in which case Ivy Lee is the grandfather. Lee suggested that the families make high-profile donations to various charities and have photographs taken of them handing out money to the commoners to make the public think that they were good-hearted and generous people. Over time, the plan worked, and has been replicated by many other aristocrats who wanted to win favor in the court of public opinion. At the time of his death, Lee was being investigated by Congress for his work with the Nazis through the company IG Farben and a proxy firm called the German Die Trust. He was also a founding member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Now that the new and improved Bill Gates has dominated the headlines for years, many people have forgotten about the accusations of stealing ideas from others in your industry and then relentlessly using intellectual property laws against anyone who threatened your dominance. Your reputation was at its worst when Microsoft was caught up in an antitrust legal battle with the United States government, because you spent years developing a tech monopoly through your company. In 2001, Microsoft was forced to settle with the government and give up its monopoly of the industry, and the next year, you began shifting your time, and more importantly, your money, into the pharmaceutical industry. This time around, you have come to dominate an industry as an outsider, through stock investments and charitable organizations that are not bound to the same regulations as a publicly traded company. There is no doubt that advancing medicine is a noble cause, and it is true that investments in public health are important, but not everyone involved in the pharmaceutical industry actually has the best interests of the public in mind. As with any industry, it all comes down to the almighty dollar. There are some people in the industry who have good intentions, but judging by your track record at Microsoft, you are not someone who can be trusted. And let's not forget that just months ago, you were in the news because your relationship with the disgraced human trafficker Jeffrey Epstein was being exposed. Now, as frightened people around the world are demanding solutions and looking to people like you for answers, you have advocated for some extremely draconian measures, including a surveillance system to track down anyone who might be infected. Of course, all of this sounds like a necessary step in a global pandemic, and this virus is a very real threat, but in China and other places where these measures have been implemented, human rights violations followed quickly after. It is also very strange that for many years, your companies and foundations have been heavily involved in a project called ID 2020, something that seems very similar to the systems you have proposed in recent interviews. You may own the corporate media, but we still have the internet, and you will be exposed. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Welcome to the Matrix. And you in this.
I'm just getting warmed up. This is von Clausewitz shit. Total fucking war. I'm gonna pull the whole thing down. I'm gonna bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gotta be.
You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to believe in Satan. Just remember that these people do, and they hold on to their master and the satanic army very close. Oh, we've been lied to. The world is not what it seems. This whole old ancient hope, we cannot hold on to it any longer. We cannot survive any longer by hanging on to the falsehoods of the past. Reality must be discerned at all costs if we are to be part of the future. Truth must prevail in all instances, no matter who it hurts or who it helps. If we are to continue to live upon this earth together, at this point, what we want may no longer matter. It is what we must do to ensure our survival that counts. The old ways is in the certain process of destruction, and a new world order is beating.